Okay, here we go. Welcome to
Mhm.
another of our divine dialogues. Today, I am joined by Praveen. Praveen and I met years ago in a mediumship class. We stayed in touch. She's attended one of my retreats, and um, she is somebody I have watched go from being like a little nervous about embracing her gifts to like fully rocking them. And so I wanted to bring her on and have this conversation today so that we could talk about like how you get from here to there, right? Because that journey is a daunting one for many of us.
Mhm.
And also like just what that looks like living a spiritual life for her right now. So Praveen, can you start off by telling us a little bit about like who you are and what you do?
Oh, thank you. Okay. Um, what I do is I have my own business, and I named it Apsara Healing. Apsara is a Sanskrit word for angels. And I think that I resonate more with angel, the angelic realm, and other dimensions as well, such as the fairy realm and ascended masters. So that's how I came to that name. And so a little bit about what I do is I started off mediumship with you, and then I developed further to learn how to work with crystals. And so I work with pendulums, crystals. I learned how to do crystal grids to manifest different things in your life. Before that, I was practicing Reiki. So I've been doing Reiki for about 28 years now. Um, and then mediumship was back in 2017, but even before that, I was already able to speak to different spirits. And then I went on to learn Akashic Records. And yeah, and then the Oracle card readings came very naturally to me. So I started doing that. And right now I'm practicing Ayurvedic massage.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
yeah,
new. That's amazing.
that's yeah, that's very new. I really like it. It's something that I get to do. I get to infuse that with my Reiki and help people balance out their chakras, and the oils that I use really helps balance out the system, and it helps with health um like insomnia. It helps with just bringing that stillness, mindfulness into your system. And then I also started doing sound bath healing, where I also, yeah, uh, sound bath healing is pretty interesting because I like to bring Reiki into the sound bath, into my crystal bowl meditations as well. So I started doing guided meditations. That's been very recent. So those are the different things that I do. And when I meet somebody, I basically let them know what I'm doing, what kinds of things I can do. And sometimes they're not even fully aware of what is needed for them, and they just talk to me about whatever is stressing them out, or whatever concerns they have, or what their priorities are at the moment. And then I suggest to them, because I connect with their spirit guides, and then I'm able to find out which modality is good for them, and then we go from there. Yeah.
That's the coolest thing I think about having a toolkit like that, because I have a similar toolkit. Um, and I just, for years it was just like these were things I was called to learn and explore, and they were mostly for my own practice for the most part in the
Mhm.
beginning anyway. But then when you have this really like robust toolkit, you're able to meet people where they are, and it's not like this cookie cutter, this is the solution for you. It's like, okay, well, here is what you're telling me, here's what I know, here's what your guides are saying. Let's make some magic.
Yeah, the magic is the beautiful part.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I have to tell you, like when we first met in mediumship school,
Yeah.
you were probably, I think there was you and maybe like one other person who were really already very gifted in that area, but you were nervous. Like you weren't, it's like almost like you knew you could do it, but you didn't like own like the potency of your gift. And now to go from that, and you had a day job and everything at that time too. So to go from that to running your own business, like what the fuck happened in the middle?
I like how authentic you are. um, I still have my day job. I still have my day job because I really feel like I can intuitively help people in that field as well. I work with autistic adults.
Mm,
I've been working at that same agency for 23 years. And I never left because I work with people that have autism or they're not able to speak. And I don't know, somehow I'm able to connect with them and work with them, empower them, and help them be more independent or bring joy into their life. So that's why I never left that. um, but the process, you're right, of mediumship, when I took the mediumship course, I don't think I owned it. I think it was, I went into that because, um, oh, first of all, yeah, how I went into that was because I was taking an Akashic record course with Teza, and when she read my records, she said, "Oh, you've done mediumship before." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, interesting," because I've been able to see spirits, talk to spirits, hear them, feel them since I was a kid, but there was never that word mediumship. You are a
mhm.
medium, right? And in my own family, in my own culture, if you tell somebody, "Oh yeah, I saw a spirit," they think you're crazy. So for the longest time, I was told I was crazy. And so it was like button up, forgotten, don't talk about it. Otherwise they'll
Buried.
think you're in the family, right?
Yeah.
So I never brought it up. But then when I started my own healing journey, and it started because I had endometriosis and I was very, very in a lot of pain. And I was like, there's got to be something more than Western medicine, because doctors didn't seriously know what to do with me. They were trying different kinds of medications, and nothing was working for me. And I was always in pain, and I took time off work. So I was looking for new modalities, new ways of trying to help myself. And I liked the Akashic Records because she would do a meditation journey with us. And so for a moment of time, I'd forget about my pain. And so when she said that, I really think you should try mediumship, that's when I found JHV, and I was glad that it was in person back then. Um, and I liked that class because I felt like, wow, like this is home for me. Everything that she was saying, like, was like, okay, this is really real. Other people around me feel the same way and have the same experiences as me. And so that's why it felt safe to like learn and explore. To own it, I honestly didn't own it at that time because I was still in the closet, and I didn't even tell my family what I was doing, that I was going for these classes. And I didn't even push myself to call myself a medium until it was my other mentor, Teza, that started doing events. And so she told me, like, okay, you need to be at this event. And I'm like, okay. So the first event, I was very, very quiet. It was a good learning experience. Um, and I was still in the closet. And then I think this by the second time around, that's when I started saying yes. I became more confident with as time went by with experience, and so that's when I went on to take like the next few levels with JEV. And I think with practice, the confidence just came on, and now it's like second nature. And I'm not afraid anymore or embarrassed anymore to say yes. This is what I do. This is what I see.
Mhm.
So we're in 2023 now. So that happened in 2017. It's been 6 years now. Yeah,
Isn't that wild? Like how fast the time goes. I'm like, how did we end up here so quickly?
I
I
know.
I think that point about like having that safe space to experiment and explore, it's almost like tiptoeing out of the closet, and it's still safe for you to be able to run back in if you need to. But I really love that she created that space because it was like that for me too. For me, I'd been talking to dead people since I was a kid, but it scared me. And I didn't
Mhm.
want to see anything. I still don't want to see anything. I've got really clear boundaries about how they're allowed to show up for me. Um, And I needed to learn like tools and strategies and have a space to put them into practice that helped me work with this gift instead of it being something that was really overwhelming or scary. Because I would get like headaches. I would get pulled out of bed at 3 in the morning. Like it was bananas. Um, and a lot of what we have in this community in the Sacred Soul Sisterhood is really similar. Like it's not in person, but it is a place where, women who um have these gifts or have these practices, because maybe it's not that they have embraced like their psychic or intuitive abilities, but they have this spiritual nature, but it still feels different from everyone in their day-to-day life. And they need somewhere, they need community, they need people where they can talk about this stuff and share these things. And I don't know if people realize like how important community is, not just in spirituality. I think, when I left my first spiritual group, the community was the thing that I missed more than the work. When I left the church, it was the people that I missed, not going to service every Sunday. You know what I mean? And I think that we need space where we can show up as our truest self without that being something that is like judged or criticized or we just lost you. Where did you go? Oh, your lights went down. There you are. Welcome back.
Sorry, yeah, the phone call came through. Sorry.
That's
It just
okay.
hung up.
That's
Okay.
okay. So yeah, I think that we underestimate how much we actually need other people, like-minded people in our lives.
I absolutely agree, and I really enjoyed like the one of the retreats that you did where it felt completely safe to talk about whatever experiences I was having, and you created that sisterhood right from there. And I think even then I was nervous and shaky. I think that was even before my first event.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it was.
right, yeah, and there were, yeah, I remember you created such a comfortable, safe space for me to talk my mind with other people that were going through the same thing or have the similar experiences, and without any judgment. Like all my life I had judgment. And
Mhm.
so for the first time, this is a retreat without any judgment. And then the way you took us through our Akashic Records journey, and you empowered us to find our own messages and our own guidance, which was incredible because I haven't experienced that before. Um, and then even with your, you had like the gifts that you gave to us really did help us uncover the true potential, because shortly after that I started having the confidence to go into the events.
Mhm.
So it really pushed me in the right direction. And yeah, I do have an experience where I thought I was free to talk, in a safe, I thought it was a safe space, and it turned out it wasn't.
Mm.
And I graciously like removed myself, and I'm like, you know what, I'm sorry you guys don't feel this way. And I felt like strongly judged, and so I did remove myself from that group. And yeah, it was sad because you think that in a sisterhood you can speak freely when you're not even judging somebody, and you think that they're going to be minded, non-judgmental, non-biased, accepting. That was huge, and it wasn't like that. And I think it was because that person came from a religious background that
Mm.
really judged, especially with sexuality. So if I'm going to be honest, it was a group about sexuality, sacred sexuality, and I thought that it was okay to speak freely about your own sexuality, and it wasn't. And it was looked down upon and very judged. And I was told that, to be very, um, basically, that mentor of mine told me that they are scared for my soul because I'm susceptible to the devil, and that I should
Oh.
my soul. Yeah.
And that was like that wasn't a peer. That was the person teaching? That was the
That
mentor?
was my mentor. That was my mentor that
Oh,
I
that
had
hurts my
a
heart.
relationship. Yeah, I had a relationship with this mentor for a good 3 years. and I was in that group and we were talking about sacred sexuality, and I thought, well, okay, I'll bring this up now because I feel safe. But no, it was really looked harsh upon. And the other part that hurt was that some of my other peers I knew wanted to be open about their sexuality, but they couldn't.
Yeah.
So I took the first step, but I was I had a really harsh reaction from my mentor. So I decided to leave the group. And I thought my peers would back me up, but they didn't.
This is the thing that's really damaging about judgment. And, I think we do have a degree of like personal responsibility here. But if we step outside of like the day-to-day engagements, like not even just people from a religious background, but also from that, like we
Mhm.
are conditioned of like what is okay, what is not okay, and it is like so embedded in our society that that's the only way that we can see the world. And so we jump to judgment before we can consider, and like judgment and
Mhm.
assumption, like to be talking about like the
Mhm.
devil, you're being susceptible to the devil, like that is so harmful, not just to you,
Yeah.
super harmful to you, but all those other women who wanted
Yeah.
to talk about their stuff, now they know it's not fucking safe and they're
Yeah.
quiet. And like the whole reason that they've come to this space is to be able to have space held for them. And like I have kind of I know part of it is who resonates with my work because they're
Yeah.
in that state of readiness. But like I have
Yeah.
a zero tolerance policy for any of that kind of fuckery because I
Yeah.
understand the harm that it can do because I've also been the one on the receiving end of it. And I think one
Mhm.
of the things that happens with spirituality, because we're like, oh, you just got to stay high vibe, you just have to stay positive, we're denying our darkness.
Yeah.
And we came in to have human experiences in this life. Our soul didn't come here to be an ascended master, it came here to be a fucking human. And that
Mhm.
means the full spectrum of emotion, it means the full spectrum of experience. And like, even if I didn't resonate with something that, that was like your cup, let's say, let's use like a topic of sexuality. Even if you brought something to the
Mhm.
table that wasn't my thing, or even if it made me uncomfortable, that is my job to be with that discomfort and say, like, okay, why am I in judgment here? What is this bringing up for me? Why, and it's the willingness to ask those questions and to not just assume that I'm right. And that's where we have to be willing to step out of the high vibe tribe, because when we're in a state of curiosity, it can take us into some of our darker parts and our darker edges. But like
Mhm.
that's where the medicine is. If we're
Yeah.
sticking only to like the love and light brigade, then we completely miss the point of being human in this life. And then frankly, our soul's going to have to come back and redo it all over again because it didn't get to do what it was meant to do in this lifetime. But that harm, like that, like it hurts my heart and it pisses me off, to be honest. Like I just
Yeah.
hosted a retreat in Mexico in May. And at the end
Mm.
of it, the women said, like, I can't believe this sisterhood that was formed, like none of us knew each other a week ago. Did you know this was going to happen? I was like, yeah, that's yes, because that's what my circles are like. And the big part of that is all of you is welcome to the table. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to be anything else. And if you were to bring something to the table that like brings something up in someone or brings it up in me, and I don't mean just you, like whoever, like
Mhm.
it is our responsibility to talk about it. And also, like we need, for the healing that like the collective sisterhood needs to happen, we need to be able to have those conversations, to have people facilitate it and have people show up imperfectly, like leaders show up
Mhm.
imperfectly and be like, hey, I'm feeling this way and I don't really know what to do with this, like what do you guys think?
Mhm.
And we need those examples, because so long as these conversations are either not happening or they're happening in whispers behind closed doors, the healing isn't happening. That trust isn't being built. The healing between sisters and the ability to like feel safe to be vulnerable, none of that happens.
Right.
Right. And so we need to have spaces where we see that mirrored, and also where we ourselves are willing to ask the questions of like this discomfort instead of blaming it on the other person. Like, what is this bringing up in me and why is it here? Why do I think that my way is right and her way is wrong? Because that's arrogant, frankly, right? And it's spiritually arrogant to think of it on like some kind of being like higher above somebody and that one's, cursed by the devil. Like that is
Yeah.
so wrong. on so many
It
levels.
it was pretty hurtful, and I needed some time to disengage from that group,
Yeah.
and also like to deeply reflect on this, like because I felt really lost. I thought, my gosh, this is my mentor. I
Hmm.
thought I was feeling safe in this group, and now I'm being harshly judged, and they're saying my soul is in jeopardy. Um, I was lucky because I had some peers that I was able to talk to about this.
Good.
And my outcome was that, you know what? Maybe it's my own time to make my own tribe and not follow. Maybe I'm not supposed to be a follower. Maybe I
Hmm.
need to open up space for people that are of all races, gender, LGBTQ, um, all diverse abilities. And and it took me a while to build my own tribe, but I knew that I had to be authentic.
Hmm.
So at that point, I had a choice to like say, sorry, yeah, you're right. I need to repent. Can I please come back to your group? Or I could, take the time I need to heal from this and start my own practice. And my goal was to be authentic as possible. And I thought, you know what? If this is how I felt, I can't imagine how those other people are feeling and are now silenced, just
Yeah.
like you said.
It's
So I
heartbreaking because
decided,
that's the space they
yeah,
went into to have those conversations. And now it's
yes,
not safe to speak up. It's like
I
you're working
know.
against your own mission.
Blew my, yeah, it blew my mind. It
Ah,
really blew my mind. Like everything that had put, I had put my faith into this group and my mentor, and I thought, oh my gosh, like where did I go wrong? But then I'm really happy now because I don't have to follow somebody that doesn't have the same belief system as me. And I'm
mhm.
very accepting of of everybody, right? So I have my own practice with my own group of clientele that doesn't follow that mentor at all anyway. We have two separate groups. So, you know, um, yeah, I think if we're talking about practice, like I like to team up with people that are authentic, not people that try and steal your thunder,
Mhm.
right?
Because
And
there's enough thunder for all of us. Like, there's
exactly.
enough to go around. We don't have to, and I think that has to do with A, being authentic, and B, being secure. Like secure
Yeah,
in who you are, what your gifts are, what you bring to the table, because then you have, I always use the term unshakable certainty. Like you
yeah,
don't have to steal from anyone else or make them feel small or whatever, because like you're good. Like
yeah,
anything that anyone else is bringing to the table, that's just making it a richer experience. But at the end
yeah.
of the day, if it's just me, like I'm like, no, I am a good enough offering. Like this is great, and we can make it better for sure. But that doesn't mean that it has to be like a diminishing of me to do that.
No,
There's
no.
space for all of
Yeah,
us.
you're right. So I'm happy that I don't need to follow something that doesn't feel true to me, right?
Yeah.
So, and when people come and talk to me and we're doing oracle card readings or Reiki, they're healing from their stuff, and I'm happy to empower them and to make them feel like they're safe because that
Mhm.
is the most important, right? I've done a lot of Reiki, and I'm also like a teacher as well for Reiki. And so I'm happy to see that the students feel good, still coming to me and talking about everything without
Yeah.
judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, we need those and we need teachers who are safe people, like, for sure. Because
Yeah.
I think especially if someone either hasn't, seen a healer of some capacity, or if they have done it, but they've kept themselves guarded, so they didn't go into those deeper layers, they probably
Mhm.
don't recognize just how vulnerable it is. But like, I've had readings where like even with one of my mentors who was like talking about like sexual fantasies and kinks and things that had, been part of my past. I've had I've had to deliver news that like the guides are saying you need to masturbate. Like, you know what I mean? Things
Right?
like this. I'm like, it is because you see like deep into somebody's soul, and it's like, hey, I know this is gonna make you super uncomfortable. That makes me a little uncomfortable,
Right.
but my job isn't to judge the message. My job isn't to filter. My job
Right.
is to be a channel and to be clear and like, yep, it's gonna be a little awkward for a minute, but this is coming forward for a reason and trusting that.
I know. I always tell them, I'm like, it's not coming from me, it's coming from the guides. Like, don't kill the messenger.
Don't kill the message. It's so true though. It's so true. Mm. Um, so yeah, something that jumped out because often when I have like these types of conversations, like different little moments are gonna like bing, and there's something that we
Mhm.
have to come back to. And it was you talking about at the retreat when we were doing the Akashic work.
Mhm.
Um, so when I learned Akashic records, it was about how to do readings for other people and how to do healings in the records. But it was actually just for like a super timeout in case somebody who's watching this doesn't know, the Akashic records is basically like the library of your soul, everything it experienced in every lifetime, in every dimension, everything that it will experience. And then you can go even deeper and it's like the collective consciousness of everything that we have all experienced. It's like a pretty powerful thing to be able to access. Um, and when I was trained, it was very much about like you are the channel, you are the messenger, and like and the healer. Um, but what I had learned, this is a few years ago, from like being exposed to different types of teachers who really create like an us and them separation so that they're higher above the students. I realized that that dynamic is in place because they think to be able to be leaders that they have to be above. Whereas I feel very much that we can lead in circle where we're all equals.
Mhm.
And that's why I always thought it was really important where I was like, it's the exact same skill. Like you don't need to be certified to be able to access your records. So it was like, if I
Mhm.
could take you to that space and it's really validating, even though that was like what, 2019 or something, like that's really validating for me to hear that that was empowering because that was the entire point. I don't ever want to be someone's guru. I don't want to be their one and only. Like that doesn't interest me at all. And I feel like that's, I mean, what it's sounding like is like that's sort of the mentality that you have with your clients too. Like you want to be that source of information and inspiration in the safe space, but you don't want to be, the one true truth or whatever.
No, and yeah, there isn't. I this is the funny part is that when people come to me for their practice for whatever modality they want, like say if they want a mediumship, right? Um, I try and connect to the spirit, and then if I can't, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but don't e-transfer me, don't pay me, I can't connect, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm like, and I used to be able to refer them to other mediums, if I know anybody, but like I even with some people that have like hormonal imbalances or anything, I'm like, I'm sorry, you need an Ayurvedic specialist. Let me refer you on, right?
Yeah. And
Especially,
the security in your gifts and knowing when it's not you, like when it's not
yeah.
supposed to be you. The endometriosis thing also jumped out at me when you talked about it earlier, and the
Mhm.
number of women who are in these intuitive and healing roles who have different second chakra issues, like, it's almost all of them that I know personally in some capacity. Like,
Wow.
I had a hysterectomy last year because of mine. Mine, it wasn't endometriosis, it was, like, ridiculous fibroids that were, like, the size of oranges and stuff, it was ridiculous,
Wow.
but and it was something that we couldn't get under control with medication and everything else. We tried everything. And I don't know. I would actually I want to ask you if intuitively, do you like is what do you think the commonality is there? Like why do you think that happens?
A number of things. I really feel like, so I went into my own Akashic records for the endometriosis reason, and when I went into my own records, I saw like, this is harsh, and I don't want to trigger anybody. Um, it was harsh because I felt like back in my old lifetimes I wasn't accepted for the gifts that I had, and so I was tortured at the stake, I guess. Is that what you call it? I was, and I was bleeding badly at the stake is because I was being tortured because I was being called a witch. Um, and so I remember when I was at your retreat, one of the peers there was saying that it's a warrior's wound.
Mm,
So I don't know. I really didn't get the full concept of warrior's wound, but I wonder if this also, if the endometriosis came back in this lifetime to show me that, hey, you need to go back to your gifts. You need to go back to your spiritual gifts and learn again, because I was really suppressing it for all my lifetimes. I mean,
Mhm.
for whole life that I had, I was suppressing it because I didn't want to be called crazy anymore, right? And so I just shoved it away. And I think this was a huge wake up call. And perhaps other women are having it or having similar issues because perhaps they went through the same thing in other lifetimes, and now it's like a wake up call for them that, you know, men have dictated women's bodies for many lifetimes and even until now, right? And I'm
Mhm.
wondering if that has a lot to do with it. Like in so many states, like it's the men in politics that are saying that women cannot get abortions. um you know, how many cases of rape is there where it's the men being physically violent with the woman, right?
Mhm.
um I think it's, yeah, I think that a lot of women just want to take back their body and remember who they really are and who their gifts are, and embrace themselves. um for me, that's what I saw when I went into my Akashic records. I was like tortured for many lifetimes in many different civilizations. So yeah, I don't know
It's
what
like the common thread that's going from lifetime to lifetime is like the pain in there.
the, yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your insight is about that.
So I have a couple of thoughts. Like the first, and again, it's like when you mentioned the pushing things down, the burying it, like that kind of rang a bell for me. And I know there's a lot of women who are not on a spiritual path who also have these same kind of like female issues or whatever, reproductive issues. Um, and I would not be surprised if that has to do with repressed emotion, repressed desire, repressed needs that we don't allow ourselves to have because the patriarchy says that that's not acceptable or nice or whatever.
Mhm.
I do also think, like, with the work that I've done with the second chakra, that it's often tied to like my maternal lineage. And I feel like, my theory is that like our sisterhood wound started with our mothers, that they were kind of like the original person that started to warp how we see other women and how we connect with them and what we're willing to trust and all of that kind of thing. And I do kind of wonder if there's something to that too, if it's, if you being the second chakra, being, the feminine, if there is a degree of that wounding that plays out in that space. And maybe it's amplified in a lot of healer types because we are so sensitive. So we have all of our own shit plus everything that we pick up from the collective as well. I don't know, but the suppressing thing definitely feels part of it.
No, absolutely. I forgot to also mention like even me being for female in my own culture
Mm,
is not celebrated. You know, in my culture, like I was born in Vancouver, um and born in the Hindu religion, and we pray to a lot of goddesses, right? We celebrate these goddesses. We have all these celebrations like Diwali, you know, goddess of good fortune and all that. Yet the girls in India are treated like crap. And even here, being born here, like when I was born, it's like my father didn't want me because I was born a girl.
mm-hmm,
And all in my family, they just say, oh, yeah, um, I'm so sorry you have a girl. Well, hopefully next time you can have a boy. And boys have a bigger status in my culture
mm-hmm.
than girls. And yeah, it's horrible. It's really horrible. So I also wonder if all this time I didn't want to be a girl, hearing this from my own father. And perhaps I, you know, pushed down being the feminine, embracing the feminine. Because
Mm,
I remember like while I was growing up, I didn't want to play with Barbie dolls. I wanted to play with mud and tried to be a tomboy, right?
Yeah.
Just so that I could be a boy for my father. And so I wonder if I just didn't want to be feminine because it wasn't embraced. It wasn't looked at as a gift or a blessing to
Yeah.
be a daughter.
Even though it is. It absolutely
Right.
is. For
Yeah.
me, I had a similar like detachment to my femininity, but for me it wasn't coming from cultural programming, although in my family the boys are definitely treated better than the girls.
Mhm.
For me it was safety.
Mm.
And to be honest, it wasn't until oh God, I want to say December 2020 before I had this epiphany. And like I'd started my journey in like 2007, 2008. So it's a long fucking time to wait and to wait for this to be revealed. But yeah, it didn't feel safe to be in my body. It didn't feel safe to be a woman.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time like actually physically checked out of my body because it was easier to exist in the world being detached, being
Mhm.
disassociated. And, yes, that's a protective thing. Wonderful. But the problem is it also means that we are not experiencing the fullness of our
Mhm.
lives either, right? And it's so tragic when we are back, and this kind of comes back to this whole idea of like being able to be authentically yourself. Like when we can't be the fullest expression of ourselves, whatever that is, whether it's our gender, whether it's our spirituality, whether it's our kinks, whether it's our whatever, like
Mhm.
when it's not safe for us to be us, like how are we supposed to fully experience life?
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
This is the theme. I didn't know where we were going with it, but here we are. Like it's crazy. Like, oh, I don't know. I think about this a lot because the women who tend to gravitate to my work are closeted or are really newly accepting the
Mhm.
inevitable truth that has been in front of them the whole time. So
Mhm.
like where you were when we first met, like you're basically a lot of the women that I work with now. And so much of that is just not having not having a space where they can even explore what is true for them, let alone express what is true for them, right? We're so
Right.
busy being like shoved in a box and labeled and saying like, okay, well, this is who I am, this is what I do. And that's so it's so limiting, and it creates such dissatisfaction in life when we don't get to decide that for ourselves.
Mhm.
So in
Mhm.
this embracing of yourself in your journey, how has that impacted, to whatever degree you're comfortable sharing, like how has
Mhm.
that impacted your life, like with how you relate to, like how did it change you as a mom, how did it change how you interact with your family? Like it feels like the client evolution was almost like the more obvious one. It was like the more you showed up as yourself, the more they felt safe to show up as themselves because you were a safe person. But like
Mhm.
how does that change you as a as a person, as opposed to you and your business?
Right. Well, it's funny because like living authentically is what you really um pushed for me in that retreat. And so
You
I've been
lied to come to the retreat, do you remember?
I did. Oh
And,
my God, you
and
remember that?
because we couldn't take pictures in case you got busted. Not to out
I
you.
know.
Sorry.
My family still won't be watching this, so that's okay. Yeah, you're right. I had to say that I was going to work.
Yeah, you're at a work
And
conference on the island or something.
right, exactly. And I had to, decide, am I going to be authentic? Because part of the practice is, oh yeah, part of the spiritual walk is that if you're going to speak about it, if I'm going to be a mentor for other people and a teacher for other people, I have to walk the walk.
Yes.
Right? And you have to come out true. And the thing is that what I found during that time that I was doing a retreat is that, yeah, this is where my heart feels like it belongs. But what do I tell other people?
Hmm.
Right? They're going to think I'm crazy trying to talk to angels. Right?
And then how do I not waver in what I know to
Yeah.
be true, that I have these gifts, just
Right.
because I'm getting projection and pushback from people who think I'm crazy or whatever.
Right. Right. And especially if your own family doesn't believe you or support you on this, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that was the hard part. And it happened for a while. I think even when I was going for mediumship classes or Akashic Records classes, it was a struggle. And so what I decided to do was like, you know, screw it. I gotta do this for myself because the way my heart felt right doing this. And then telling my family or friends a different story felt wrong in my gut,
Yeah.
and I'm like, who am I deserving the most? Well, it's me that I'm deserving. I'm not being true to myself, and that
Yeah.
matters more to me than being dishonest to somebody else,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, because it's self-abandonment, right?
Yeah,
It's saying these parts of me that I know are real and I know are true aren't welcome here. And so we're just going to
yeah,
pretend that they didn't happen, but then it's like, but they did happen. And then you're like,
right.
am I crazy or did that actually happen? Like it almost is like the reverse. It's you're telling yourself you're crazy by denying those things rather than someone telling you that you're crazy for believing
Yeah,
them.
yeah. And so I was like, that's when I started doing events. And I was like, I have to do this because this is what comes naturally to me. This is what feels right to me.
Mhm.
And I'm going to do it, whether or not my family supports me or not. That's fine. And I started doing it. And the more I started doing it, the more people I was meeting from different, um, like I was meeting different people from different communities, doing different modalities, and I got to have a connection with them, and through the events I got to do networking with them. And the more I did that, the more I wanted to reach out to other events, like through meetups and Facebook, more retreats, just because I wanted to create a community for myself so I can talk to them. If I didn't have my family support, that was okay by me,
Yeah.
as long as I was with other like-minded people. And those people were very open-minded and supportive. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel that too." And and so that was the amazing part. And I think that's what empowered me to feel confident to be there with my own practice, because it even having my own practice was hard, because I was like, oh my gosh, well, now I got to reach out to the public. Like, I got to tell people I'm a medium. They're going to think I'm crazy.
Mhm.
But so that's the professional part. As far as the private part, yeah, my parents never believed me with mediumship until it was my stepdad that lost his brother in Fiji. And this happened, oh, it was in 2020. So he lost his brother in Fiji. I only saw my uncle once when I was 16. So I barely know him. And he passed away, and my my dad was just like, oh no, he passed away. I wonder what happened. Like, how did he pass away? Nobody's telling me what's going on. And right there, I was able to connect and do a reading. And I sat there on the couch, and I was like, I was able to channel it. And I'm like, okay, this is what uncle is saying, and I gave him exact details. And then he's like, okay. He like looked at me like, okay. Next thing you know, his nephew, my cousin, calls him and says, yeah, sorry I didn't get back to you, but dad passed away at this time, and this is how he passed away. And it confirmed
Mhm.
what I told him. And from that day on, he was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what my daughter said. And that from that day on, he started believing me. He cleared out the back room, and he's like, this is going to be your office. And that was a game changer.
Oh my god, I love that so much.
Yeah, it was
That's
beautiful.
supportive.
Yeah, very 100% supportive. And now they even, gave me the basement so I could do my Reiki, my Ayurvedic stuff, my Oracle reading. everything. They're open to that. They're open to me going to events, talking about it like I am with you right now. um I can go into different families' houses, and if they're curious about it, I'm able to talk to them openly about it, and that was a game changer. They finally believed me and they gave me the support. It's too bad it took that long, but I
Yeah.
think it's because I stood up for myself, and because I kept on standing up for myself, then they're like, oh, okay, something's going on.
This
You
isn't
know,
going away.
this is not going away. This is not a phase. Exactly. And how I show up for my kids as a mom. I have a daughter and a son, and they're 18 months apart. So how I nourished my kids is that when they were younger, much younger, even at the age of 3 or 4, they start talking and they start saying, Mom, I see this, Mom, I see that, or I feel this. I encourage that and I nurture that. And I'm like, okay, baby, yeah, that's right. You do see that. Yeah, I see the same thing. Yeah, you feel this too. I feel the same way. So they both love working with crystals. They
Oh,
both work with fairies. My son is much more stronger in mediumship. My daughter, she's more into the angelic unicorn realm. But they're both empaths and very intuitive, and it's amazing because I could just be in the room with them and we could share the same love and the same space. Like if they're feeling like they had a hard day at school, they can come to me and I don't have to say anything. I could just hold them both and they're okay. It's like a battery charger.
yeah.
Um, so I love that, and I encourage that, and we do the same things together. Like they come to my sound baths. They're 10 and they're 11 and 13 now, and they come to my sound baths. I we run meditations together. We go crystal shopping together, and they look at my cards, they look at all my smudging stuff and my candles. And my daughter is really good with aromatherapy. I hope one day she can do her own aromatherapy scent.
Mm-hmm.
She started doing that when she was 6. She started making her own bottles for events when I was going. Yeah. So I nurture those gifts, and I never say to them the things that I heard growing up, like, you're crazy. What are you doing? No, don't talk like that. You're nuts. I never talk to them like that. I always nurture their gifts. So that's how I come out for all of my different lives.
Yeah, all your facets. I don't know if
Mhm.
you see this. I think nurturing the gifts is huge, especially because it's something that you didn't get, so you know how important it
Mhm.
is. But I don't know if you realize too, like the work that you have done to share yourself, your true self with the world, and to stand up for what you know is true, and to like not give up even when you're getting pushed back and whatever. Like that as an example for children, particularly for your daughter, but for your son as well, is so
Mhm.
huge because it's not just about embracing the gifts, it's about embracing the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
And I love that you are that living example for them.
Thank you.
Because we
I
need
try.
more of that. Definitely need more.
Yeah, I try. I try. And they even want to learn stuff from me. So I'm like, yeah, you guys can carry on the torch after,
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's kind of neat is with you not branding your company under your name,
Right.
they can be a part of it.
Yeah.
They can grow into the business as well and have all these different new facets and new ways of
Hmm.
engaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
I'm
it's really
looking.
cool how, because we have so many highly intuitive parents right now, that this new generation of sensitive kids are coming up with different skills and more support. And
Mhm.
like, it really makes me hopeful for the future.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I feel
Hmm.
like that's like a nice natural place to wrap this up. Um, if you were to give a little nugget of wisdom for somebody who has found this recording and who has, spent the last hour with us, one last nugget, like what do you think they need to know most?
I think it would be you know, it can be really, really scary walking through this path by yourself. So if you find somebody that you can connect to and resonate with, go for it. Make that connection because you're not alone. There's a lot of healers out there. Um, and you doing these like safe circles is huge, right? And holding that space for people that need that is huge. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank
um,
you.
find a safe circle, find a safe space, reach out because you're not the only one.
It feels
and,
like
and
it, but you're
yeah,
not.
you're not exactly. And yeah, it can be a scary path, but hey, I don't mind holding somebody's hand and helping them through, right? Just like you did
Same.
me.
Yeah, same. I still
Yeah,
feel like that. I feel like, eh, it's doing the thing, it's being the person that we needed
yeah,
in those moments.
yeah, definitely. There's like you held the light for me as I was going through scary times, and I appreciate that, and I want to be there for other people as well. Um, thank goodness now I think it's more in the open with Facebook and meetups and
Mhm.
Eventbrite, I called. You know, if you, even if you're scared and you just want to come to a meditation and do nothing, that's okay because there's no expectations, right? And everybody facilitates in a totally different way. So
And if it
even if
doesn't
you,
resonate with you with that one teacher, find another
yeah,
teacher. Like,
exactly.
there's someone out there for you.
Exactly, there is. And it may seem scary, but you know, shine your light because honestly, like you can't suppress it because sooner or later it's gonna come out.
Yep. Because you're in the closet and the whole like edges are all glowing because your light's just beaming through, even though the door is closed.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna happen,
It's so
right?
true. It's so true.
So it's better to find your own community than it is to hide in a corner and you know,
Suffer.
yeah, it's a lot tougher. It's a lot tougher to suppress how you're feeling or thinking or your true being.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you find your true being, you're so much happier.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And don't wait until your 40s to find it. Like for me, it was my 30s basically. Like don't wait that long, right? Like, because it doesn't have to be. We don't have to delay ourselves. Like all the people I know who like wait to live until they're retired. What if you make it to retirement? You're just gonna be fucking miserable your whole life? Like, no, you deserve better than that. And you deserve to live the fullest version of you.
Yeah, because just like you said, you have to come back and repeat it. So what's the
Yep.
point?
Yep. What a bummer. Like to have a miserable life and then come to the end of the road and be like, oh shit, I gotta do that again.
I know.
Sucks.
I
Oh, that would suck so bad.
I
Oh,
know.
Praveen, it has honestly
Yeah,
been like an honor to watch
yeah.
you grow. And I'm so just thrilled that you were able to come and share your story with us today. Like it is such a common thing to be in that place of having to hide who you are. And I think that your story will give people a lot of hope that they can, oh, sorry, that's my cat feeding alarm. I think your story will give a lot of people hope that it's not always going to be like that and that they can choose
No,
different.
they can definitely 100%.
Yeah.
If we could do it, so can you.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's nothing special about our journey. We're just like
Yeah,
everybody else.
yeah.
So, okay, thank
Okay.
you so much.
Okay.
You have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your day.
Bye. You too.